Good evening, folks. Precisely, I must not say that because still we have a lot of things to make your evening good. And it's my pleasure to host this session on Azure Function. See, there are there must be a lot of you thinking about what the Azure Function is, and this is so much advanced topic and all these things. But see, who is here with us? Aditya Oberoi. He's DevRel engineer at Upright, MLH coach, fellow champion, and also a Microsoft Go District and Learn ambassador. So he's here to give you the technical insights about Azure Function. He's tailor-made speaker on this topic. Over to you, Aditya.
Thank you so much, Lakshit. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Huge thank you to all of you for joining in for this session. I know Lakshit gave a really great introduction anyway. There's not much more I can add there, but yeah. Hi, I am Aditya. I am a DevRel engineer here at Upright and a Gold Microsoft Launch Student Ambassador. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about one of my favorite Azure technologies, that is Azure Functions. Uh, Personally, I think I've been playing around with serverless tech for a while now, and that's especially been with Azure. So I'm actually really excited to be here to talk about functions here with you all. So I'll tell you what. With this session, what I'm going to do is I am not going to bring up a conventional presentation. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk a little about Azure Functions, look at the website, see how you can access and work on it with the Azure Portal, and then we'll straight off jump into VS Code. We'll try out how you can deploy an Azure function from VS Code. We'll play around with that. We'll see how you can set up CICD with GitHub. So we'll do that first with a HTTP triggered Azure function, which is basically a function that you can call using the API endpoint you get. And after that, we'll see if we want to try out any other types of Azure functions, because there are a few different types there. So we're going to touch upon that, all of that, in a few minutes. Don't worry. In the meantime, if you have any queries throughout, please feel free to keep them coming in the live chat. I will see where all I can, pause to answer. Otherwise, in any case, we're going to take questions at the end. So it shouldn't be too big of a worry. Right? So yeah, this should be fine. It'll be comfortable. I hope you're all ready for this. I'm definitely very excited. So I guess what I'm gonna do now is, first things first, I am gonna take StreamYard and just shift it to my right side. The reason I'm doing this is because I wanna work with my main device. So whenever you see me looking to the right, it effectively means I'm trying to look at the live chat and the comments that you might have. So just looking for your queries. So don't worry too much about that. Okay. We're gonna be fine. And let me just go ahead and bring up my screen. I think my screen should be up now, I guess. Yeah, looks good, looks good. So this is just our basic website, for Azure Functions. It's the landing page there. I'm going to keep this coming to the reskill team as well so that we can have these sent over in the live chat. In a bit, I'll keep throwing in links like that. Okay. And so yeah, this is well, the landing page for Azure Functions. It's the first place that where you might get to know what Azure Functions are, what they're about. So I think in order to understand what Azure Functions are, the first step is to think about and understand what we mean by serverless code, right? Or serverless compute. So when we talk about serverless platforms, what happens is that these typically work on an interesting model, just like the conventional platform as a service model that you might have heard of it with cloud platforms. What serverless compute does is, so what serverless technologies do is, they build on top of PaaS to offer you a new service called as functions as a service, where you basically get to run your code directly on the platforms. You do not have to worry about allocation of servers, virtual machines, or any compute resources. Otherwise, you just deploy the code and run, and it works well for you. Okay. So that's effectively what functions as a service does. So it's not that there isn't a server behind it. All it means is that you don't have to manage it at all. You do not have to touch any components of server management. So um, aspects like auto scaling, all of that, it's all managed by, well, the cloud platform in this case, which is going to be Azure. Okay. Now, with Azure Functions, what this does is it allows you to create event-driven serverless functions that you can deploy and run. You can sit and build and debug them locally on your device, and you can deploy them and then operate at scale, and integrate services, triggers, and bindings, all of that. So it's pretty nifty that way. All right. So yeah, that's a bit about what Azure Functions are. You can go ahead, automate this process. There's a lot. It's actually pretty convenient tool to work with, because we've got automatic scaling, as I mentioned earlier. It responds to events, and you can seamlessly connect to other services. There is end-to-end deployment. That's something you can do. And there's quite a few programming languages available. So I know you've seen this website. It's already there in the chat, so you can keep having a look at it, right? I guess it's there. So yeah, you can have a look at this, at any point of time. I've sent this link in anyway. And those are few of the major languages you can build Azure Functions with. You've got C# with .NET, you've got Node.js, Java, PowerShell, you've got Python, of course. So these are a few languages, and we're going to see what other options we have. Aside from that, there are a few different hosting plans you have for Azure Functions as well, that I'm going to touch on just a bit before I kind of jump into playing around on the Azure platform and all of that. So the first plan that we have here is the consumption plan, which is the one that we're going to be working with. This is basically a very simple plan, and what it means is that you only pay for what compute resources you end up using while functions run. Okay. So as soon as you trigger, instances of functions are deployed onto a system, on a VM, or and they keep running. So we've got workers there on different VMs or servers at the back end on Azure, that this is going to manage for you. Now the premium plan is different in the sense that, while of course auto scaling is based on demand, right? How many people are triggering these functions? What the premium plan will do is it'll pre-warm workers for you to run applications, so that there's no delay if there is a long while being idle. Now this delay comes at times in the consumption plan, because at the end of the day, right, in a serverless function, what happens is that yours is deploying the code and it's going to run it on a system. Well, if a system is not running, or if a function has been triggered for a long time, there might be a slight delay, because systems need time to switch on. Right. So what that's called here is a cold start, which is what causes the delay. But with the premium plan, it ensures that there are pre-warmed workers, so that your code is deployed to an active device, so that those delays aren't present. The app service plan, that is the third plan, effectively what it does is it runs functions on the Azure App Service solution, which is effectively that's actually where you can deploy your web apps and um, APIs and applications here on Azure. That's a full-fledged Azure service for that. So in this scenario, it runs functions within on a full-fledged app service plan. So this is great for very long time running operations, but of course it'll increase costs as well. So that's a bit about Azure Functions, the different plans, and I've kind of talked already about you know different languages. It's pretty beneficial, because you can just kind of plug these in and out wherever you want. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna show my Azure portal, which I had open already. All right, let me zoom in a little. I think that should make looking at things easier. So with Azure, to create and to avail any resource, all you got to do is click on create a resource. Here you can go ahead, and as you see, even within get started, you already have function app, which is available. That's great, right? So we can create here from here directly as well. Otherwise, you can just search for you know function, and you're gonna come up to function app anyway. So here again, you see that we've got a button to create, we've got different plans, usage and information, usage information and support information. One really cool thing is that with Azure they actually provide documentation for this as well. So if I just click here, I can get the entire Azure Functions documentation available for me, which could actually be pretty handy in here for our participants. So you can keep that around with you, but you can get that directly from the Azure portal as well. All right. So we're gonna go ahead, create a function app for us, okay? Because I'm just gonna show you how you can do this here. We're not gonna go through the full deployment. I'm gonna take you through the settings because I wanna live deploy from VS Code. So I wanna show both of those, right? So I'm gonna take you ahead here through the process. Or I'll tell you what, we could just do two different functions. That's not a problem. We'll just do that. So not an issue. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new resource group for us for this session. So I'm gonna call that AZDev session. That's just a name I want to keep for myself. Resource groups are effectively containers that hold different relevant resources for you across. And I realized that I just never mind. Go ahead and click OK on that. We're gonna name our function app. Now this is a name that that needs to be something that is new, that's not found, because this is actually going to be deployed for us. You can access this endpoint externally as well. So I'm just going to call it azdev function test, something like that. Okay. We're going to publish from code and not a Docker container. So I'm going to leave that along. Runtime stack. That's a fun one. So here is where you can select the different languages you want to work with. As I mentioned, we had .NET, Node.js, Python, Java, and PowerShell already, right? Plus there are custom handlers, but that's not something I'm going to be going forward to. What I'm going to be working with is .NET in this case, but you can feel free to work with any platform you like from these. All right. So don't worry too much about that. I'm going to select .NET 3.1 for now. That's something I've been more accustomed with, but that again is a preference. You can work with whatever version you prefer. Okay. For the region, I'm going to keep the one that's closest to me. That is Central India. I know that because I've played around with functions for a bit. But you can look at the different options they've got here, okay? We've got West India. And plus, some of you, it might just be closer to look at some of the other options. Like there is West India, there is South India. That again is for our Indian audiences. If there's anyone from outside of India, that's awesome as well. You can check out the other options we have. Next up, we want to look at hosting. So we're going to go ahead and create a new storage account for this, because to create a function app, that it is necessary to create or link a general purpose Azure storage account, because function apps have triggers for Azure blobs, for event queues, and table storage. So by default, if you don't have an existing one, it'll create a new one for you. Okay. Secondly, of course, there is operating system preference, which is recommended here based on runtime stack. Now, for .NET, Windows is typically my go-to. So I'm going to let that at Windows, but you can go ahead with whatever recommendation you have based on the preferred runtime stack for your function app. Okay. Thirdly, as I mentioned, we had three different plans, that I talked about earlier. We're going to leave this as at consumption for now, since we're not really taking this application into production. So it's not a big problem for us to have minor delays. Okay. Now, networking here preview. This is not something that we need to worry about in the consumption app, in the consumption plan, but there is a facility for network injection that we don't need to worry too much about here. Fourth is monitoring. I recommend keeping this on. Applications Insights is actually a really great tool that allows you to monitor your application's performance, find if there are any errors. It's actually an amazing diagnostics tool that we can look at later on as well, once we're playing around. So we'll definitely do that. Okay. But yeah, make sure that you keep Application Insights on. It's actually a great tool. Last but not least, you can have a few tags, that you want, anything you like. So I'm just going to call it function azdev session test. Doesn't really matter what you name it here. This is just an example that you can create tags, which just help in categorizing and viewing consolidated billing, to be honest. But that's really the extent of it. Even if you don't create a tag right now, it won't hurt. So after that, we just go ahead and create. And what I'm gonna do is we're gonna have the deployment that's happening. It's in progress, right? Meantime, let me see what's happening in the chat. I've seen a lot of familiar names. Hi Sonal, hi Hari Krishna, Khalid, Vedant. Great to have you all here. Always, always lovely. Yeah. So yeah, deployments in progress. It's cool, Azure lets us know all of that. Whenever we need that information. So pretty nifty for us. It should take a few more seconds, if not minutes, and then we should be through, right? So in the meantime, if any of you have any queries, feel free to ask those. Okay. Okay, that looks good. So I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna go to the resource. This is actually great because uh, Azure gives you all of this information. You can create a function here. It recommends what the steps you should go forward with next. So it's pretty cool that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to resource. This gives us all the information about the resource that we have. As I mentioned, right, that you get that URL for you. We've got information about the plan, the subscription that you're on, different properties, as well as metrics. So it's great that way. And here you can find the different functions as well. You can go ahead and create a function if you would like. You can develop in Portal or in VS Code. Okay. We're going to develop in VS Code. That's my preference, honestly. And, I think I realized that we're going to need Azure Functions core tools to locally test, but it's okay. It's not something we need to worry about too much. The rest of the steps, really, you can go through. This little addition here that says, that talks about Azure Functions core tools, it's a tool that allows you to test it locally on your device. Okay, that's effectively what it allows you to do. I don't think I have it installed at the moment since I'm on a new device, but it's not a problem. We can directly deploy and test it from here as well, so it won't be an issue. Otherwise, you can actually go ahead and develop in Portal if you want. You can see we've got a lot of these different options here, like the HTTP trigger, timer trigger. As I mentioned, we had the queues, event hub. We've got triggers for blob storage, Cosmos DB, SendGrid. There's a lot that you can do with Azure Functions. You've got triggers for RabbitMQ with messaging queues or Apache Kafka. So it's a great platform. We're gonna first play around with the HTTP triggers though, which basically lets us communicate with the function with a get or a post HTTP request. If you're aware of APIs, you might have come across those terms, right? So that should definitely help. Say you can build here, in Portal. If suppose, I select that and I can just create HTTP trigger one for me. I just let that name be for now. But, there's a lot you can do. So it creates that function for us. You can go ahead, you can go to code plus test and actually build directly in Portal if you would like. Like, see, we've got our code here and you can even play around with this. You've got our function.json, which lets you know what the authorization level is, what methods work. So we get all of this information and we've got our function here directly. So, this is just a function that takes a little, query name and it returns a message to us that if string is, if it's present, it'll say hello to you, and if it's not present, it'll give you a message that the function triggered successfully and you can pass a name. So nifty little tool. And then you can go ahead and test from here directly. It'll you can send it as the PostBody or as a query, either way. So if I select get, I can just remove this body from here. and I run it, and I can oops, seems like I closed it. My bad. But yeah, I mean, effectively what it would do is you could run and see what's happening, and it'll give you a response there. Let me zoom out a little. So we got our response output here as well. And had this been missing, what would have happened was that the output would have been a little different, in the sense that you would have gotten a default response that says that it doesn't have information present. So that way the in-portal development tool is pretty cool, but I want to build some custom stuff, right? I mean, I like working with my code editor. That's my preferred space, so I'm going to do that. Now, as mentioned in the instructions, the first step is to go to extensions, and you need to install the Azure Functions tool. We've got a few different tools here for Azure. Um, all the different Azure tools, they're all present here. You can get them. It's a good idea to get the functions one. We're gonna need that. Okay, so make sure you get that. Now for me, it's installed. So as you can see, I've got a little Azure tab here, which you'll get once you install any Azure service. And I've got a few different ones here because I work with a few different Azure tools. So we've got the functions tab here, which allows me to create a new project, sign into Azure, or create a free Azure account. Now I've got one already, so I'm going to quickly sign into my Azure account, but you can actually directly make one from here as well. So there I am logging into my Azure account, and it's logged in. Convenient. Yeah, I'm just going to go back from there. Back to the code. So here, you can see it's already got my subscription. It has all the different function apps I've actually got running, and as we created this one. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna see we have the function trigger here. All of this information, it's pretty great, right? But I wanna create a function for this. So I'm gonna. Oh, I see. We're gonna have to download that. Ish. You know what's even more convenient? Why don't we just create a new function application for us? Yeah, we can do that from scratch. Actually, that'll let you see how you can build it from Azure directly. So I'm gonna go ahead. I didn't want to select there. I wanted to, create a new project. Oh, yeah, my bad. So I'm just gonna create a new folder here. This is my dev work. I'm gonna call it AZ dev session VS Code, because we're deploying from VS Code. Okay, so I'm gonna select that. Here, as we saw earlier, we've got our selection of languages once again. See, we've got TypeScript as well. That's great, awesome. But we're gonna go with C# since I'm a .NET buff. You can choose whatever languages you want to. So I'm gonna go with .NET. We can select the runtimes here. Now I do not want to work with .NET 6 as I mentioned, but that's what the latest version support. Luckily, with VS Code you can look at any of the different versions. So I'm gonna go ahead with .NET Core 3. You might find it easier to understand that structure. So we're gonna leave it at .NET Core 3 for now. Okay. And as soon as we did that, you can look at the different. If we've got all the different options that we saw earlier as well, right? Which is great, which is really convenient. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna create the one with a basic HTTP trigger. We're gonna name this test function. Okay. You have to provide a default namespace. That's just a thing with that's a .NET thing. Namespaces here at least. It's a collection of classes, so similar to what a package is in Java. So I'm gonna go ahead. We'll leave it as default. And for the access rights, I'm gonna let this be anonymous for now, because this way, I don't have to authenticate every call. It's only recommended to do this if you're working on your development environment. Once you're in production, it's better to have the function one that's gonna allow you to keep your access key aside as well. So I'm gonna leave it as function for now. And we're gonna open this in the current window. Sure, that's okay. So as you can see, we've got our function created here. I'm going to zoom in a little, and we're going to minimize this. So you can probably see a similar sort of structure as we saw earlier, right? I'm gonna restore this. That just gives me access to the C sharp well extension that we have. Let me minimize that for now. Not an issue. And I don't think I'll be able to build this at the moment because I don't have core tools. But let me see if we can just quickly install that. Maybe it's a good thing we had that documentation available for us, because fun thing, that documentation gives you access to all the necessary information you need. So I can go ahead, go to C sharp, and just get core tools here for me, which is pretty great, right? So let me just go ahead and quickly install that. Should be quick. I wonder if oh yeah, I'm gonna need version 3 actually, not version 4 for now, since I'm working with version 3 of Azure. So since I'm deploying with .NET Core 3.1, I'm just gonna download version 3 of this. Yeah. There's quite the process there for us, I see. Never mind. We're gonna just go ahead, quickly deploy this and run it off. Well, Azure directly. But all the documentation is there for you to understand, test around, and yeah, looks like that's all restored. So for now we're good. So I'm gonna take you through this code and help you understand what all of this stands for here, so that we can go ahead, right? So the first thing you can probably see are, a couple of these namespaces and libraries. We've got the systems. Some of these system.io and all these are just default .NET libraries. Tasks allows us to use asynchronous. That's what allows us to have asynchronous functions directly in the code. As we can see, this one is the Azure Web Jobs library. This is what enables functions here, actually, if I think about it. So that's what we need. We need to keep that one around. This here is an HTTP library from ASP.NET Core. We've got a logging library, as you can see, is being used here, and newtonsoft.json. So if there's anyone who works with C# and .NET, you've probably come across this library here. It's really convenient. It allows you to, easily convert JSON objects to your your classes here in .NET, or if you want to play around with dictionaries and whatever, that's on you. But yeah, it's a great tool that allows you to serialize and deserialize objects here in C#. So we're gonna go ahead. We can see, okay, no, not the app service. We have our local project here. We've got the different functions that we want. Let's see. Let's play around. We've got our log information. It's actually the same code that we had. There is some stuff to understand on this front though. All right. So as we can see, this is our test function. That's our Azure function test function, and within this, it takes a few different inputs from here by default. First one being information about the trigger. So we mentioned HTTP trigger, so that's mentioned here. It's got the authorization level we selected, the two different routes which we can go by. As I mentioned, we can go with get and post requests, right? Now, if I remove one of these, then I can't effectively use one of those requests. So we're gonna let that be. Routes are not something we need to worry about. These help out, if you're kind of working with a static web app and you want to make sure that your function is accessible at a specific endpoint. But for now, we don't need to define that. We don't need to worry there. Then here, of course, that's our HTTP request that we get, which is coming in from, that's where we're using the HTTP library from ASP.NET. And we have our logging, we have a logger. So yeah, that's about it for this function and what inputs we have. Now, what this code here is doing effectively is, from the request we're getting, it takes a query, it looks if there is a query for name, and it gets that information. Now that's for a get request. If you're taking a post request, you can get a request body, right? So what this does is it extracts the body, the JSON, the JSON body from the HTTP request, then converts it into a dynamic object out of which you can get information. And what this effectively is doing is that, if either name is present, or if or we've got name within data, then it's just going to save that value here. That's all we're doing, and that's the response message that we're sending back, and that's basically an okay response for us about it. So that's what the code is doing. um, let's see if we can play around. So I'm going to kind of change this, okay? And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and, well, we'll do one thing. We'll take first name and last name and join them. Okay. So we're gonna change what we're doing with this code. We'll play around with this template and we'll change the query we have. We'll take first name, and I just kind of want to copy this because I'm keeping the other one as last name. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly, change that. And we'll join first name and last name for us. Oops, it seems like I typed first once again. Eesh, doesn't matter. um, and what we'll just do is we'll create another string, which is the summation of these two, effectively. With the request body, we'll do something similar. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and copy some of this. Actually, you know what? We'll keep a different title here. And the reason I'm doing this is so that, things remain easy to work with. So we can rename this as well. We'll just rename. That's not something you need to worry too much about. I'm just kind of trying to showcase the difference here. If we've got a GET request versus a POST request, what could the difference be in our response? Okay, so let's see. We don't need to use the query here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get the name from the deserialized object in this case, right? So in similar fashion, we're gonna change last name post, just having this information, and we're gonna have name post. So this is just because I want to differentiate and show what happens if there are post requests versus get requests. Just basic differences, nothing too much to worry about. Actually, if the summation of both name get and name post is null, because that just joins them, then it's gonna basically run. We're gonna change this message and we're gonna make it enter name. And if it all works out, then we're gonna do something different. We're gonna print what the get name is, which is get, and we'll print in a separate line. Post name. It's just a little demo. So because I want to show what we have here, okay? Because after this, I'm going to deploy this to our Azure subscription, and we're going to play around accordingly. Okay, so Let me add name post there. We can directly return the response message and it'll send back a string, or we could convert that into a JSON format as well. So I'm gonna convert this into JSON format. So if I go with this structure, what I can actually do is have an anonymous type, and I effectively get back a JSON if I go this way. So I'm gonna save this and I will deploy. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead, create a new function app in Azure, and we're gonna call it AZ dev session PS code. Because we're playing around with PS code, right? So we're just gonna create a fully new well, function app for this, just because I wanna select Windows here. I'll let this be in the same resource group as earlier. And we want to make sure that we're choosing the same location, just because in this case it's the closest one. Consumption plan. For the storage account, I'll just create a new storage account for this, doesn't matter. And for application insights, I'll also create a new one, which is okay, doesn't, like, just for the sake of the session, that's all right. So we're gonna see this being deployed here for us, It's gonna create a function app and it's gonna deploy it for us in Azure. Hi Vedant, just saw that you've joined in as well. It's great to see a lot of familiar folks. After this, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take this to GitHub and we'll see how CICD works with these as well. So I'm going to publish this to GitHub and we'll add a little thing. We'll just add a little numbers addition sort of thing, something very basic to it. But yeah, it's creating all the resources for us, which is pretty cool, right? And the fun thing is we can actually go ahead and test it all out. So I'm going to probably use Hopscotch for testing. But yeah. I see Shiv Prasad mentions you just joined late. That's all right. This recording is going to be on YouTube, so you can just access the YouTube link later, I guess. That should be good. And I realized that I've left the queries here as first name and last name only. But in the post one, I've changed it. Yeah. We'll make that change as well once we when we try out how CICD can affect functions. So it'll be nice, it'll be fun. We're almost through with the creation of a new function app. Since it's in the same resource group as we have, we're actually going to see it come there. And now it's actually publishing the function for us. So if I look at the output window, I should see the deployment happen as well. Okay, yeah, that reloaded it. So it's publishing the function app for us, and it seems like that deployment's through. So we can actually go to Azure, as I showed earlier. Yeah, well, that's just okay. That's the yeah, that's the documentation for developing C# functions. I think I just messed up when we were looking for core tools. That's approximately about it, but it's okay. It doesn't really matter for now. So if I go back, if I go to my resource group, we should have a second function app that we created, VS Code test, right? That's the one we created. So we should have this function here. And there's a jump in memory because it's kind of deployed that function up here. Okay. Seems like we're good on this front. So I can actually go ahead and try out this function as well if I'd like. Okay, that's the function. Oh, that works. Nice. We can also go ahead and do some of that in here. So, if I want to just make sure that the function is present, I can see my test function is here. The reason it's in read-only mode and I cannot edit code for this is because what we did was we kind of pushed from a package and we didn't like write the code directly. So it's running off a package file. But I can get the function URL from here. I can still test and run it if I'd like. So we could just add first name, last name parameters as I'd shown. I think I've just give me a second, please. Getting a little keyboard trouble, it's all right. Oof, that's the Azure portal for us, but we've got the function here, right? So I can just, add queries here. So if I add first name is Aditya and last name is Oberoi, for example, we get the get name and the post name. we get that information, which is awesome. Pretty cool. Now, had there been a space here, yeah, that takes into account the space, which is great. If I want to play around with the PostBody, I'll just bring hopscotch over. I will add this. And in the body, let me change content type to application JSON. And, ooh, 1 second. Yeah, that's the raw body, right? We've got first name post. That's Aditya. No, actually, no, wait, keep that as Microsoft for now. I just realized I need to have a comma and we'll keep last name post as Azure. Let's see what happens here. Okay. I think I've seen this issue in the past. That's more of a hopscotch thing, I guess. But the fun thing is we can just, I'll tell you what, we'll just bring over this post body from here. I'm going to quickly copy this. Yeah. So if I try it out now, we could actually effectively test it here as well. I don't think we need a header for now. We can remove queries as well. So in this case, we'll get our post name as mentioned, which is pretty cool, right? That's what we were trying out. That's what we were testing. So the function works essentially. Now we want to test out CICD though, because every single time kind of going and editing and manually deploying is just not convenient. But the good thing is with functions, you can actually go ahead and set up CICD and deploy, from GitHub or wherever else you want. So I could just select a code source, one of these. And we're going to do that with GitHub. So first things first, I need to kind of push this to GitHub as well, right? So I'm going to stage all these changes. Let's see. Git Azure function test. Test use case. I'll just, yeah. Well, the branch needs to be published. We'll publish this to a public repository because want to make sure that this is visible, right? Like in case any, like, because I want to show changes up there. Actually, no, we can just do that with the private repository. It won't matter, but let's go with public. So I'm just going to publish this to GitHub for us. And now I can just open GitHub here and see that, we've got a little repository. As I showed, right? So I'm going to share this link here in the chat as well with us. And we can go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this here. Okay. So here, as you can see, we've got, my that's my user, and it'll load all the repositories for me. So I can go ahead and I can select the relevant repository, that is CDEV session VS Code and the main branch. All of that information is there with us. And let me check. Yeah, okay. So as soon as all of this is ready, I can just save and it'll publish. Yeah, that's pretty nifty, if I'm honest. Because you can get all the logs here. And interesting thing, what it'll do is it'll add a little GitHub action there for you. So you can check and see, what's happening. So it's going to set up this function here to build and deploy. And that preview we saw, you can find the exact same GitHub action here. So it's honestly amazing because it automatically does all of that for you. I'm going to go back to the deployment and it seems like it failed. And I have no idea why. Yeah, I'm not sure why that happened. Okay, looks like it's kind of messed up the build there. Sheesh, that shouldn't have been the case. Interesting. But for that matter, I do have other deployments ready and sitting for me probably. So I can just hop over and look at one of those for me. It's kind of a cheat, to be honest. But let me see if I've got any other actively deployed functions. Because I should have something or the other around. So I'm going to have a look. And let's see. This might have a function. Oh, this was just a test function. I didn't deploy this. There should be one of those around here. All of these issues happen all the time. And I just think, wait, this might. Let me keep this aside for a second. No, that's not it as well. Wow. I'm surprised I don't have a deployed function link here. I think I should have one. Even if we don't have, it's all right. Not a big problem. I can always go the local gateway if I want. But yeah, it seems like I don't have a deployed function. I can probably take this off my screen and check and see if I can find one, because I have some deployed functions, I guess, from a few different places. So let me take a second and see if I have a copy of one of those. Yeah, okay. Looks like I might not actually have a copy at the moment. The reason we've got a slight issue there is because we've seen the the Azure Functions. Yeah, I know it's showing .NET 4. I'm kind of surprised about that as well. So I'm gonna see if we can get a .NET Core 3.1 function GitHub action, because I can't happen to find one of those for me at this second. But it seems like we've got we've got some of these here definitely. So I can think about I can think about this, but I don't kind of want to worry too much right now. Either way, even if I go and choose local gate, I don't think it should be the biggest problem. Let me go and disconnect. Huh. Interesting. It seems like there should have been a different. Okay, I'm actually confused as to what's happened, but that's probably something for the Azure team. Yeah. Let me see if kind of setting it to 3.1 fixes this. I'm not sure if it's gonna do that honestly, but who knows? Let me go ahead. Let me check that and see if that does anything for us. Because that might be a part of why we had this issue. So I want to see if that works out. If that does, that's a big win. If not, never mind. It's all right. It's not a big problem for now. We can always review this. That was just a CICD test, but probably had I gone ahead with .NET 5 or .NET 6, with .NET 6 it might not have been a problem because this isn't the most updated version anymore. So that's probably a part of the little trouble we had. Look, it's supposed to be one of these formats, which is interesting. I'm actually surprised at that. So, because that shouldn't be the case. And I think I might have. Okay. Okay. I think I have a version with me that should work because it seems like I might have actually tested this one in the past. So let me go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check what exact .NET versions I have. And I'm going to use the exact same thing as I might want earlier. So it help. I, okay, that's not okay. That's the most active one, but yeah, 1 second. So I do have a path setup that I found that happens to use 301, which apparently worked because I know I've used this deployment. So let's see, this one might. Fingers crossed. If this doesn't, we're not going to focus too much on this. Well, I'll show it from local gate at least, if nothing else. So we're going to see and hope that this happens. Yeah, and I know that build version showed. Basically, that template is what it uses to kind of create this example. And apparently it wasn't editable for me, which was a little surprise. Oh, but seems like that works. So I'm assuming that, yeah. I'm assuming it had problem finding the exact version, but looks like we're getting the .NET version installed. So we're good to go on that. Sheesh. Yep, that works. GitHub Actions for the win. So now that that function, that version was all right, it is now able to download the SDK for that, which is where we were seeing a problem. So yeah, now fixing that should get us to deploy this this Azure function. And the fun thing is we're actually going to see this in our deployment logs. So that first one we'd created was via push, right? We're going to see another deployment that comes here after all of these are resolved. And it takes a little extra time at the start because it's building and resolving all the project dependencies for the first time. Subsequent ones should be a little quicker. The great thing is we can actually get all of this information from here. From the the action, so we can actually see everything that's happening in real time. If, for example, I think I should eventually be able to see a deployment here once this updation happens. Yeah, after this it should load up. Yeah, see, so as I mentioned, that first one was a push from VS Code. In this case, we've got a commit and we've got a separate message here. And that job's good to go. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to make a change. I will add a little addition to this name. I'm going to change this name. I'm just going to add, well, thanks Azure Developer Community. You know what? I'll tell you what. We'll just change the entire response to this for now. Doesn't matter. Yeah, that's going to be a response message. Whatever happens, I just want to change our response to this. So I'm going to remove this entire thing for now. And we're going to publish the response message. Just thanks Azure Developer Community. And we'll add a little. Yeah, we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead. We can see we've got changes in our, well, test function. Those are, of course, the changes. So you can just find all the changes and you see there's quite a difference, but that's all right. Not the biggest worry at the moment. So I've just staged that. I'm going to say updated function response. And we're going to sync these changes. Okay. So as soon as I sync these changes, you will be able to see that because there was, a push and a pull, we've got the action running again. So this is gonna, it's gonna set it up and it's gonna deploy for us. So very soon we're gonna see that change here. And once that's done, we should have a fully new function running based on what we've kind of pushed here, which is great, isn't it? So it's just setting it up, gonna resolve project dependencies, all of that. I'll just look at the comments. Yeah, deploying is pretty comfortable in Azure. It's doing all of that determination, which is cool, great. That's totally awesome. And yeah, we should have our deployment up and ready pretty quickly. Right, this we should be good very soon. So it's just determining, just as earlier. And once all the dependencies are restored and good to go, we will see, anything else. Like it gives us the warnings as well that are necessary. Which is actually pretty cool, right? So the reason we see that it lacks await operators is because we removed we removed some functions there. But I'm assuming, yeah. So if we don't have any await command and then we don't have the await being used, then it effectively runs it in a synchronous manner, is what it does. But that deployment's good to go for us. So if I reload, you see we've got another deployment up here, right? We can look at the logs, find the information. Okay. So if I go ahead now, complete job, I Please post checker. This should give me. I'm just checking if this has the deployment link. We can actually find all the logs here as well if we want, which is pretty neat. But now, if I go to the function, we had our test function here. Yeah. Okay. We've got the test function. If I get the URL and I run this now, it should show a message, thanks Azure Developer Community, which is the update we made. So that's pretty cool, right? Yeah. That's what this does for us. This with this we can just quickly update our apps, push the code changes, and it'll deploy for us. So that's about it from my end. I think we're also at time. We got through all the different content I wanted to cover. We were able to work with HTTP triggers, check out how CICD works. Little issues in the middle, but what's any technical stream without issues? So I think this was great. We had a good time. I think it was I definitely enjoyed presenting this, and I hope you all had a good time as well.
So, hey Aditya. So, hey everyone, I hope you all enjoyed the session. He just did a very wonderful part on the hands-on training. Like, hands-on training, the best thing while doing means learning for learning. Hands-on training is the best thing. So,
Yeah.
thank you, Aditya. Thank you for being in the session as a speaker, and thank you everyone for
Thanks a
joining this
lot for
session.
having me on.
We are having a lot more session with Aditya, so tuned in and do subscribe the channel, and we will be hosting a lot more sessions. So,
Yeah,
thank you
there's
guys.
definitely some stuff in the plans, so it'll be great.
Yes, obviously. So thank you guys. Thank you all for joining.
All right, see ya.
See you. Bye.